Really lucky here because we do have a lot of women playing music, going to shows. There's women booking shows, there's women owning venues, there's women doing incredible photography at these shows, journalism, everything, promoting. We're very lucky in that regard here.
I love being able to ride my bike and spending all my time yearning for things that will never come. I hope the cops come during our set so we can keep playing just to spite them.
My name is Courtney Kirby. I'm the marketing coordinator at the Bourbon Theater and the front woman of the local band Freakabout. Our production team, there's only 7 people, and 3 of us are women. That's awesome. But I do all of the marketing. So anytime a show comes through from point 1, I hit up all the radio stations or do print or street team stuff, anything that is just to catch your eye, social media, that's all me. So we try to do as many community events and local shows as we can. It just depends how our calendar shapes out. Well, we're all about supporting our community and being a safe space and a venue where people feel comfortable coming together and enjoying the show. Normally, the fall and the spring are super jam-packed, so we can't do as many, but when we have more open time the summer or the winter, we try to get as many cool little local shows in here as we can.
I really like the Bourbon. I like the front room, and I also love the main stage. The front room for me is just one of those places that you can get 25 people in there and it feels like it's full, but then when there's 80 people in there, then it's really full. Duffy's is good too. We played a lot of shows at Duffy's. Also, just our friends' houses.
I run a house show venue called The Void, and I'm a photographer. Our first show we hosted was in February, and we've had shows about 2 to 3 times a month since then. We try to be very inclusive in our house. We try to make it very comfortable for everyone that comes in. We want it to be a welcoming environment. The thing about house shows is it isn't centered around making money or selling alcohol. People of all ages can come here and feel comfortable and not worried about being judged.
Our first show was space themed, and we kept up all of the lights and whatnot, and it was just very fitting, so it stuck.
If there's ever a band that we feel doesn't follow our moral code of, being nice to people or being inclusive, then we definitely would not host them. The worst thing is it is a little scary opening your doors to strangers, but it also is kind of the best thing that you can expose people to new music that they might not be able to see if they were to go to a bar, when people can't get in.
The only thing I would say that I wish we could all get better at is be more all ages oriented, because most of the venues here are bars firsthand. They're a bar, and then if they have a show, then they're open for the show. The venue here at the Bourbon, we're only open if there is a show or during the day for our box office, whatever. But it's just us and the Bay and maybe 1 or 2 others that are all ages all the time, other than house venues. So I wish we could have more kids get involved.
Starting in September of 2017, I was an intern for the radio station KZUM. Through that internship, I went to a lot of local music and art events, particularly lots of bar shows, and I wrote reviews of them, and I wrote previews for some of the shows. So I talked to local bands and touring bands. Was 19 when I started my internship, and you can't really go to shows here unless you're 21, is what I've found. Which is pretty frustrating, and the Bay does a lot of all ages shows, so I'd been to some shows there. All ages shows are few and far between, particularly in Lincoln, just because we don't have the infrastructure for it, but also because it requires just sort of a whole other level of safety and risk on the side of a venue owner, right? Because you're not making so much money because you can't sell alcohol, and also what happens if you have all these kids that are drinking or are doing drugs, and it's sort of I feel maybe a venue owner would feel a little bit more responsible for people that are at an all ages show.
I am an histrionic, I play bass, and I sing, I write the songs. I like doing that, it's cool. I'm also an organizer for Latino Lives, a music and arts festival for Latino musicians and artists from around the area. I love house shows, I love the closeness it brings to like the bands and the audience, and it's just really just low pressure, like there's no stress. Everybody that comes is a friend, and it's just like a nice time to hang out and like meet other people from touring bands, and I really enjoy that.
I go to a lot of shows. I don't really help book very many, but every once in a great while I'll help book some stuff. I am a supporter of DIY, I guess. Like that's what I do in the scene. I just like DIY.
I have played bass and sang in bands for 30 years here in Lincoln. I started in a band called 13 Nightmares, and then I played in a band called Mercy Roll, and now I play in a band called Domestica. I grew up singing. That's kind of my main instrument is voice. I grew up singing in churches, and I really didn't play piano. I played oboe, and I played in the marching band. I played bells. I took some music in college. I think I have a minor in music, weirdly. What? I know. Who knew that? But it was my husband, my then boyfriend, who bought me a bass guitar for Valentine's Day. You know, and an amp, and said, "You should be in my band." And so I just picked up a bass and started playing, because how hard could it be?
I learned guitar about 5 or 6 years ago in my early 20s, and didn't really start playing in front of people all that much for a couple of years, and then when I was 26, I started my first band. Kind of a late bloomer, but you know, it's never too late.
I didn't pick up a guitar till I was in high school, 17 maybe, and then I came to college and I met Aaron, who was our guitar player. We just hung out one night and we wrote like 3 songs. We were like, hey, this is fun, let's do this. And he knew a guy that played bass, and then we met our drummer, and then a couple years later we got a new drummer, a new bassist.
When I was a kid, I really wanted to play music. I really wanted to be in bands, but I always just saw boys.
I think it's really cool to see women in bands and to see them play music. I don't know, I just think that the idea of like women fronting bands and being successful musicians is still something that's like kind of, maybe not controversial, but it's still like less common than it could be. Heidi's a super good role model too, like Domestica is a wonderful band.
So basically, you know, our style of music is pretty, it is hard, it's very loud, and so when you stand there and you're 5'2", and you have this massive bass, and you like, hi everybody, and then you just punch them in the face with your music, and then let them, you know, ride on the floor. That was really kind of what we did. At that time, what I'm really pleased with, there are just so many more women involved, and not only women who are just the singer or just this. I mean, it's women there's a woman at the drummer, a woman who's doing this, a woman who's doing sound, a woman who's booking the club, a woman owns the club. It's taken time to probably permeate to quite a level, but it's not quite the novelty it used to be.
You know, just like the bands with women in it, like locally, like Better Friend with Megan, she like was the one who helped me book our first show like in the DIY scene, so she helped me out, and like that was really cool and sweet of her, and she keeps being an awesome person. Courtney Kirby from Freak About, I remember listening to like Freak About's first like album and was super just impressed, and I just wanted to do that, and I used to listen to their music all the time, and now I'm an intern at the Bourbon, so I like hang out with and work for Courtney and all those women that are in that staff, and it's just so cool to be a part of that.
I think that Courtney's probably the best singer I've ever heard. Like, I love her voice and I love listening to them play. I think that if anybody in Lincoln is gonna like make it big or whatever, I hope it's them.
We all kind of look out for each other. So, you know, if something were to seem weird, they would tell us and help us with the situation. And there is like a no tolerance policy for any kind of discrimination. And we watch for it.
Like we just had the Rock for Respect the other weekend, which was so cool, a benefit show for Voices of Hope, and I think there was a really awesome crowd that showed up for it. And we love doing those type of things, and because of that we met all the people from UNL Prevent and UNL Women's Center, and now they're going to come train us on all these really awesome programs that they have that we can just fully prepare for the future, and I think it's just really cool.
I think my favorite thing is that everyone sort of seems to be like on the same team. Like bands from every genre will play with each other, or like if they know people who would fit the bill better, they're like very good about giving recommendations.
The Lincoln music scene is so supportive, and I feel that, everyone has mutual respect for one another and for our projects and for our different types of music and everything. And again, everyone is just very on board with supporting everybody else, and no one really has a lot of beef, I would say, at least in what I've seen, and everyone is just willing to help each other out, and that's really, really comforting to see. I mean, no scene is perfect, but I think we're pretty accepting, and everyone's really just ready to support other bands regardless if there's if they're women or if they're not, if they're, I feel like people are really just trying to be supportive to new musicians, younger musicians, and people, continually support the woman that we have in our scene.
I have been really very fortunate in my lifetime, and I think in growing up in Lincoln, that I feel very accepted in the community, even though I'm a woman, which is how it should be. But yeah, so there hasn't been a lot of times there's been maybe one occasion when I felt threatened at a show, or there was some people that I had my eye on that I was wary of. That is not to say that every time you go to a show alone as a woman you have to be on your best behavior, and you have to constantly be watching out for people in the crowd.
Lincoln's music scene is pretty cohesive. We're all pretty tight-knit and friends. Histrionic is one of our best friend bands, and then I work with a lot of people who are also in bands.
I love Death Cow. That's our homies right there. They're so cool. I mean, Mari's she plays bass and she sings in a bunch of other bands. She plays guitars, and she's just so cool. And I always since I heard of The Way Out, her first band, I was whoa, that's cool. I want to be her best friend. And now we're friends.
I play bass in Death Cow, and I play guitar in Uh-Oh, and I used to play bass and guitar and sing in The Way Out. Playing music. I've been playing piano since I was in 3rd grade, and then I started playing bass in 7th grade, and then started playing guitar in 8th grade, so it's been 12 years now.
I started playing bass sometime in 7th grade. We have so much in common too. She also played saxophone in marching band in her school, and I was whoa, who are you? You're so cool. And it's just she's just we're around the same age and everything, and she's just really awesome and sick, and I'm so glad that we're friends. I was aware of Mari and The Way Out, and they were bigger than we were because we were just starting out, and I thought that was super cool.
But I've seen Mad Dog in the 2020s as a female lead, so it's Better Friend, Aramara, I think is one that everybody likes to point to, and Courtney, and Megan, and all of these people I think have created a really strong community where it's not as uncommon and it's not as dangerous for women to be in bands. There's a strong and growing female presence. I don't know, it's just cool to know that there are different generations of women out there still doing things and continuing to do things. That's reassuring to me.
I kind of feel women dominate the music scene now. The biggest names in kind of not just globally, the biggest names in music, they're all women. You think about that, and it just is I don't know, women are the face of music these days.
Lincoln, we always felt Lincoln had a very special, it has very unique qualities. When you go and play like in Los Angeles or in New York, you're very conscious about trying to make it, and people there are trying to, get signed, and so they play in a certain way, like to appeal, because you want to be signed and you want to be famous, and so it really inhibits kind of whatever your creative, whatever would come out of you. In Lincoln, because we live in a place, it's a flyover state, really no one knows where we are. It's like living in a magic kingdom. We just play for ourselves because it, and I think that the creativity that arises from that is really, when the stakes are really low, you can really do what you want. And it's really liberating, I think.
As a woman, I've got to say, my band has toured all over the U.S. We've been on the East Coast, West Coast, Midwest, we've been down south, all over. And I feel like Lincoln is such a progressive community for how small of a scene it is. Everyone's really supportive here, and I think there's a lot of really strong women in our scene that are probably the reason for that. I always tell people this everywhere, like, not even just the local venues that we have here, but even the local radio stations that show everyone so much support. And all of the fans and the people that come out that are just like, we just want to hear music and we just want to hang out with our friends. Like, that's cool. A lot of people everywhere else we've been, from what we've seen at least, like, it's not always a safe space, or there's like animosity, or there's weird people hanging out that like might say something inappropriate, and I gotta get the guys in my band to come like have my back because I don't know what's gonna come out of their mouth. So I think we have a really cool scene here, and I'm a fan of it.
I don't understand why you wouldn't be proud to be from here. We're pretty lucky. Like, going out on the road, seeing some of these places, like, pretty lucky to live in Lincoln.
Lincoln wasn't usually, like, it wasn't on the map in terms of a petri dish of different, like, talent and music, but I don't want to credit it all to you guys, but I feel like you guys kind of started the punk scene a little bit.
We were part of it.
Yeah.
I would agree. I would definitely agree with that. And we helped some kids build some lofts and some bands, and taught people how to screen their own shirts and kind of do that kind of stuff.
Yeah, the culture of it all.
Yeah, the culture.
That was when it was thriving.
Yep.
The most and everything. But
no, we definitely were a part of that. And it's really great to see that hasn't died out.
Yeah, it's taken
very,
off.
Now it's very much a part of just that culture.
Working with KZUM was my ticket into being able to go to all these shows, and you start seeing more people and all that kind of stuff. Mostly I did editorials, but towards the end of my internship I did a little bit more photography. I loved it. It's probably like the coolest thing I've ever done. But it was just a really cool opportunity because we got to work within a pretty small community. Like, there's only 4 people that are employed at KZUM, and the rest of it's run by volunteer programmers and interns. So through that internship, I was sort of just like given a pass to a lot of shows, and my internship director, Shannon Clare, was really good about like making sure that we were reporting on a lot of different things that were happening in Lincoln. I would go to blues shows, and I would go to rap shows, and I would go to punk shows, and all sorts of things. So that was really cool to kind of realize that there's so much different stuff in Lincoln.
We're trying to put Lincoln, Nebraska on the map. Typically in the past, people have either gone to Omaha or skipped over Nebraska altogether. We're more of like a flyover state, or a state where bands want to just rest while they go to Denver or go to Kansas City or Chicago, much bigger cities where they have a lot more fans. We've kind of upped our game and remodeled our music venue. We got brand new green rooms. We got, we're getting a new sound system. We're doing all these things to renovate it and make it a place where bands actually want to come and play. And it's definitely a larger club-sized theater.
we try to do like a music feature more or less. Immediately thought of Aramara and everything that she does for the Latina culture and music, and just her and her band, the energy that is with Histrionic. I immediately thought of them.
Histrionic and Latino Lives are like my most important things in my life. Latino Lives was an idea that I had after I played Queerfest last year in October, I believe. I saw how many people came out to support the LGBT community, and I thought, like, why wait for somebody else to make an event like that? Like, I have always wanted to see a music festival for, primarily Latino musicians and artists. Didn't have a lot of female musicians in there, but I did have a lot of female artists, and they were amazing. They were so cool. There was such a broad variety of different art styles, and I thought they were awesome.
I co-founded Great Plains Music Festival. So Great Plains Music Festival was something that my friend Haladio Piscina Perez and I did together. It's sort of a non-profit music festival that went to benefit Planned Parenthood. So we hosted 8 local bands outside Great Plains Cycle Supply motorcycle shop. So it's like sort of a parking lot, and there's like the building on one side, and there's like a big dock and like a big warehouse where they fix all the motorcycles on the other. So we built a stage and used this dock to have the stage there. We had a food truck, and we just had all these bands play 30-minute sets, and we had our last 2 bands, Histrionic and A Ferocious Jungle Cat, close out the night with hour-long sets. So that was really fun. We raised about $150 or $200 for Planned Parenthood throughout the course of the evening.
I love playing shows with people who are super inclusive, super supportive.
I haven't personally heard anybody getting the shorter end of the stick, but then again, I'm really only writing about it, and I never know anything as far as treatment or anything. I know that sometimes for Aramara, it'll be tough to get a venue, or somebody just doesn't get back to her, or she really wants to do something, and this place doesn't want to do it, so they have to switch venue. It just becomes an entire thing. But I've never really heard about any discriminatory behavior coming from people towards women in bands these days, just because they know that that's the kind of person that they're marketing to.
It's really heartening. It feels good to not be treated differently, and whether that be put on a pedestal, wow, look at her, she can play, amazing, a woman can do all of this, or to be looked down on, whatever, she's just a gimmick. I haven't had any of that happen, and that feels really good. I can't think of anyone else that I know of who has talked about having that happen either, so I feel like it's a pretty inclusive, good, happy scene for the most part.
When we were on tour, this guy came up to me afterwards and was like, dude, I saw you last time you were in Kansas City, you're my favorite bassist I've ever seen, and I was just like, hell yeah, that's sweet. Being a girl in a band, we've also gotten some opportunities that we wouldn't have gotten otherwise. So my bands have played FemFest 2 years in a row, and we've played Voices for Hope, benefits, and then also Queer Fest and stuff like that.
We headlined FemFest last year in Omaha, and there's 10 different venues in the area, and there's 5 bands at each venue, and there's a female in every single one of them. And that is so crazy to me that we were popping around as much as we could, and I'd never heard of half of the bands, and they were all amazing.
I don't play any instruments. These two, they're the only two that play instruments. I kind of have a knack for drumming, if I can remember this correctly. Growing up in a super musical family with parents that have been in a band longer than I've been alive and longer than my older sister has been alive has been such a fun thing for me. It is weird. It's weird in the ways that old people will come up to me in First Friday and be like, oh, I love your parents, and shake my hand and all that, and I'll be like, I don't know who you are, large sweaty man, but you're welcome. There you go. But no, I definitely would consider drumming and definitely doing stuff like that, because I know I've been around the most wild of people, and a lot of those people are drummers. So Paul Tisdale is their current drummer, and he's insane. But I don't know. I feel it just is easy to pick up any kind of instrument. Yeah, exactly. I remember in elementary school, it was a huge, beyond huge thing for people just to be oh, let's start a band and everything. It's yeah, but when they would say that to me, I thought oh, okay, and I have all the materials to do that. So when they would say, let's start a band. Like, great, we're doing this. Like, it was a serious thing to me because I have all the resources to do so. Yeah, I have a background in music.
I talk a lot about younger bands because I am a younger person in a band. When we were first starting out, I was very annoyed because I just kept seeing like how much, maybe it was just like my own perception, but I felt that like Lincoln was a little bit cliquey because there were just some people here and there that would only hang out and only listen to each other's bands, and I didn't think that was cool because, us being a younger band, I just wanted to feel included, not included in their circle, but like accepted as a respectable, musician and as someone that works hard. What I'm trying to do as I get older and, stay in the scene, I'm trying to, every time I see like a new band or I see like a younger band, I try to nourish that, and I try to support them and hope that they continue doing what they're doing, because I want more younger bands and I want more bands with women in them. I want more bands with people of color. Like, I just want to nourish that environment and give people like that a platform.
And I really appreciate finding the young talent, finding the people that are out there. They're doing something a little bit different than everybody else. They're doing the most in their kind of field, and I like getting them recognized. I like putting them on the map in some way, making people say, hey, that's a great band. Like, I love getting to recognize new and upcoming talent, just because I feel like that kind of upholds that whole thing of helping people screen their own shirts, building their lofts, and kind of all that other stuff.
We basically started this band in 2011, and it's 2018 now, almost 2019. So we've been doing this a long time, and we've evolved quite a bit, I would say. When I first started, I don't think I knew any other women in this scene, which is not saying there weren't any. I think, we always played at Knickerbockers, and the bands that had women in them, like Domestica, they had women in them, but they were too big for us to play with, whatever. So I never really got to see them. So I feel like I had to go through a lot of weird experimental changes with myself to figure out who I was as a female in this scene. And it's been really cool to see over the last 8 years how many more female musicians have been popping up.
When I started out, I think I was the oddity. We toured the country, and I was in Mercy Rule. That band toured from one end of the country to the other. We played South by Southwest. We did, showcases in New York and Los Angeles. We were on a major label. And at that time, we would play 3-band, 4-band shows. I'd play all week, and maybe in different cities all over, and maybe there would be one other woman on stage the whole week. Otherwise, it was all men.
And that's kind of one thing that I would encourage the men in the scene to think about, is how many times have you played a show where you've been the only man, maybe in the room sometimes, or how many times are you watching your drink at the bar you're playing at, or really being aware of your surroundings?
It's hard sometimes because it is incredibly male dominated, and I photograph shows, and sometimes I'm harassed while I'm working, and that can be incredibly frustrating. And it's not by band members by any means. It's people who are going to the shows, and it's never people that I know. There isn't really a straightforward thing that can be said or be done. It has to be a collective effort by anyone who's there and anyone who's seeing these things happen. If you see your friend being harassed, you can't later say I was going to do something about that. Go up to them, help them, especially if you're a man. It helps, because that is a position of power in the community. Unfortunately, it still is. So if someone were to say hey, you can't do that, then maybe they would actually consider it. Because especially as a woman, saying that, it feels like you're not taken seriously.
I have had some friends that have had experiences like that, though. like they talked to me and they were like, yeah, like I was just trying to talk to this guy who played the show as an interview, and I was like just sort of trying to get to know him, and then he like just like wouldn't leave me alone and like thought that like we were gonna hang out all night, and like that's not, like I'm just trying to do my job. And so that's a little tough to hear that like that does happen, which I guess shows are kind of specific settings that interpretation is a little bit weird.
We're about to talk to UNL Prevent, and they're going to train us on some of their like bystander intervention and like all of these really cool programs that they've kind of been tackling recently. I think if all the venues around town kind of got in that and really made an effort to get ahead of everything before they have to worry about it, you know, make it a safe space instead of like have to do some damage control later on, because you know there's always gonna, if there's alcohol involved, there's probably gonna be something that happens down the road. So just training themselves and making sure everyone feels safe and comfortable to come out. And then we have like signs here at the Bourbon that's it's a sign that's just like, hey, if you feel uncomfortable or unsafe, like come let us know. Here's the code word, we want to help you. We'll tell that person to piss off, or we'll kick them out, or we'll figure something out. We just want you to feel safe here. And I think that's so important because especially in today's climate, everything's so crazy and all over the place, and people need to know that they can go somewhere and not get harassed or get touched or anything unwanted.
I spoke on a panel, the 1867 at Lincoln Calling, and there were some concerns about there is still some sexism that some women still face. There is still some people don't fully respect women musicians, women organizers. People don't really take us as seriously, but for the people that I've encountered that I'm close with in the scene, it's not a problem. And I think that we're on the right path to, as you know, our generation and younger generations get older, and as we take, you know, those leadership roles, that the problems will, you know, diminish.
I feel like Hannah's like super honest and really cool about, particularly about things like this, and about like where she stands sort of maybe with herself and with her band and with all the other bands in Lincoln. And so I was really glad to have her play Great Plains Fest, because it was like one of, like on the earlier side of their arc as a band. I think they've been playing a lot of shows recently. And I really like the way that she writes music, because I think she writes really honest music, and particularly her stage presence is like really familial, and so I think I'm glad that she's in the music scene, and I'm glad that she's out there like getting her voice into the world.
Kind of just like a scary time to be a woman, and honestly probably a scary time to be kind of anyone with any sort of like left-leaning or like liberal thinking. Like things just aren't really going well. Women's rights are kind of taking a couple steps back from where we had been, and so I think in that sense, like Lincoln, Nebraska is a really weird place, because we do have, we're one of like Nebraska's 2 cities, so we do have a bit more of a like open-minded community. But we're also in Nebraska, in the Midwest, in like agriculture central, in like the Cornhusker state. Like we're corn people, you know? Like, and there's nothing wrong with that, except that in certain scenarios, women are just kind of like belittled or like put in like awkward situations. And I don't think necessarily that has a huge effect on the scene, at least not in my experience, but I think that it's just important to keep women and people of color and marginalized people always like in like safe spaces, and to like help everyone feel welcome and like feel community, you know, and feel like they're not going to be put in danger or, you know, like terrorized, or, you know, not have to deal with aggressors at every turn. And usually like DIY is kind of a good place for that.
We have never really run into problems here, is that everyone is looking out for each other. If they see something, then you should say something and stop it right away. Just having more women involved, it is kind of intimidating to get involved since it is so male dominated, but I think women just need to like show people that they can be taken seriously and be in charge and be assertive. And just having more women presence in the scene is really helpful. I don't know much about other cities, but considering it is Lincoln, Nebraska, I think a lot of people would be surprised to see how involved women are, which is really nice. I know for our large music festivals like Lincoln Calling, I used to work for Here Nebraska, who used to run that, and they made a point to make sure there was women headliners and lots of women presence in the lineup. So I think that people are really starting to notice that it's an issue and that we need to be more active and being more inclusive, and I've been seeing that a lot. Like, there's such like no bullshit women, and they're like standing their ground. It's really cool.
I feel like it's mostly like showing up and having everyone be introduced and like, oh, what do you do in the band? And then like, oh, are you just like with them? Or like, oh, do you just like sell their merch? Are you like dating one of them? And it's like, no, I'm actually like the front person of this band. But then I kind of like relish in the, I kind of love when that happens when we show up, because then it like motivates me to get on stage and just destroy even more. It's sort of how I use that frustration. Just put it on stage, and then they usually don't say anything else to me afterwards about what I do in the band.
I've never really experienced like any sort of discrimination being the girl in a band, but it hasn't, like there's been some points where I've been at a venue and like talking to a sound guy or something, and then they've just like completely like ignored me. Because like, why would a girl be in the band? Why would a girl know anything? Like, I'm just here to help carry equipment, and I'm just like the girlfriend of one of the guys in the band or something.
I went with Hall Audio to a lot of different things, so there was some times when like people would address him and not me, and I was like, hi, I'm the one that's talking to you.
I think there's sometimes some expectation that like I should dress a certain way or like be a certain way when I'm performing, which is wrong. I don't agree with that at all. I don't know. I try not to think about it too much. I definitely notice it when it happens, but I'm also pretty comfortable shutting that down all the time. But like I said, I mean, it's less about how I'm treated by people, and it's more about getting the men in the scene to think about those things that I just listed of like, is it ever assumed that you are not in the band when you show up to play? Like, are you checking your drink? Are you like being told that like you should be more sexy on stage? Like, I'm sure there's some that are, but like for the most part, that's a unique experience to like female identifying, presenting people.
I have had encounters with bands from out of state that I'll just like introduce myself and ask like a question, and I've been like kind of mocked for the way that I spoke, and then after we played they were like very impressed and were like, oh, you know, like we want to play with you guys again. And I was like, okay, whatever. It was like one of our early shows, I let it slide, but then I remember there's been other instances where I'm a very funny, goofy, loud person, and there's a misconception that women can't be serious and responsible if they're not quiet and reserved, and you know, all these respectable qualities that you should have as a woman. And it's just like, no, I can be loud and goofy and funny and say stupid stuff, but still be a very responsible person and still be able to organize things. Like in my band, like I do all the booking, I do all like the organizing, designing the merch, like making sure that everything, like I handle the finances, like everything's, I mean, we all like contribute, of course, but I'm very much, I like drive, conduct the train, I don't know, I'm a train man, but no, but I've had instances where we'll play last, and the two, like we played a show one time, and we played last, and the two bands that played before us, like we were hanging out with them before, and then they come up to me and they're like, wow, like you guys are really good. Like they were just so surprised. They were like, we didn't like expect that. like, and they were backhanded compliments because it was just like you know like what did you guys think that I was gonna suck just because like I'm not like I'm not a serious person, but just because I'm not a serious person doesn't mean that I'm not a serious musician and that I take my things seriously, and it's just like it wasn't. I feel like some perception, like I don't know how it is in other music scenes. There's just still like an element of like surprise when people listen to us, and every time that I hear, oh, you guys were actually good, or I wasn't expecting that, or it's just I don't get that mad about it because it's like they don't mean any harm. Like you need to be aware that people aren't malicious all the time with the things that they say, but at the same time it's like I like proving people wrong. That's like my whole thing. Like as a young person and as I continue to live my womanly life, I want to keep proving people wrong because that just shows that I'm capable of so much and other women are capable of doing so much, and that you shouldn't underestimate people because of their age or gender or race, ethnicity, whatever. Like you shouldn't. That doesn't matter if they have the work ethic, if they're motivated, if they're passionate. None of that should matter, and just stay focused and do your own thing.
I don't know, I heard a panel at the O Fest and somebody, I think from Omaha Girls Rock, one of the leaders of it, was like, when it might have even been RMR, I was like, all of these guys can go out there with terrible voices and play 4 chords and everybody loves them because they're some fucking sad boy, but like if a woman does it, it's like your band sucks and like you can't sing and like you can't do anything, which is absolutely ridiculous. And so I think it's cool when people do whatever the fuck they want.
There was a woman, Sarah Cavanda, who played in a band called The Click in the 80s when I was in college. She played keyboards and sang, and that was alternative rock music. It was, they played punky stuff, and she was just mesmerizing like a snake. I couldn't take my eyes off her. I think anytime that you see yourself on stage, you go, I guess I think I can do that. And so when John gave me the bass and we started playing, I just got on stage and nobody ever thought twice about it, and we just did that.
I do see a lot of females coming to our shows, and even more importantly, like they'll come up to me and like have all these things to say about like how I inspire them, and like for me that's really weird because like I view me as like I'm just doing what I love to do. I don't like view myself as like a role model, and so when I have people telling me that like they really identify with me, or like that, I don't know, I get, oh, you're such a badass, like all the time, and I'm like, thanks. Like I don't really know how to like take the compliments, I guess, but I think it is important. I didn't grow up in this music scene with like a bunch of female influence in Lincoln, and someone was always first, someone was always the first one to be like, I don't really care if this is odd, I don't care what other people think, like I'm doing this, and then that just leads the way for other people to do the same thing. There's that saying that representation equals permission. If you see people who look like you doing the things that you want to do, you're more likely to do it.
One of my older brothers was in all these like really cool like hardcore and like screamo bands, and was a skater and just like all this cool shit that I wanted to do, and I didn't see any girls. I didn't see anyone who looked like me in those places. Like it took a really long time. Like I was almost out of high school by the time I started seeing, and I lived in like western South Dakota, so it's a like beautiful place, but it's also made up of small towns, and a lot of bands didn't come through there, so it was a little bit cut off from the culture, I think. So I didn't end up seeing or really hearing about very many like hardcore, like femme-fronted, like hardcore or screamo bands, and screamo like not at all until much more recently. But like I didn't see any hardcore bands that had like women at the forefront. or really at all until I was almost out of high school. That's most of the reason that it took me so long, because I was afraid. I was like, people aren't gonna like this. They're just gonna think like, oh, she's just like trying to be cool. I don't know, like I just got like really caught up in my head and couldn't get past that. Like no one else is, I don't know, I wanted someone else to show me that I could do it first. And then eventually I just decided to just go for it. And so my hope is that like we play here Grand Island early in the summer, and like there were all these little girls that like came up afterward and were like talking to me and stuff like that, and I was like, they honestly like they didn't seem that excited about like me playing music, but the fact was like they were talking to me, not to the guys, not to the other bands that were primarily made up of men. They were talking to me, and that was like really exciting for me, because I was like, maybe they'll think about it, maybe they'll, you know, like start a band themselves, or at least become interested in music a lot earlier, or, you know, just believe that like women are capable of doing these things that we haven't always been at the forefront of. So my hope in like being the front person of an emo band, I want to be someone that I don't think of myself as like a role model. I'm pretty fucked up. Like I don't like do great things. I'm just like a scuzzy little punk kid running around in Lincoln, like not ever growing up like some kind of screwed up Peter Pan. I don't know, but like I just hope that in some way like I can have a positive effect on the future and like help women, especially like young women, to see they can do anything they want to do, like whether that's playing music or like being a skater or like being the next freaking president of the United States of America. Like I honestly don't think I could have an effect on a person that way, but I hope that that's the sort of effect that like me and all the other women in the scene in Lincoln and also in Omaha will like have that effect on like young girls, to show them like do whatever your heart wants, because no one can stop you. Like if it's what you love, like you need to do it.
It's cool to see some young women kicking ass and coming out and, you know, yeah, I'm in a rock band, yeah, I'm a country singer, yeah, I'm an Americana folk artist. Like, what? Cool, I like it, I support that. And if you see it more and more, and it just makes me more and more proud. And I tried to be a solid role model for those girls. Like, it's gotten a lot better, and we are a lot more visible, and they're not going anywhere. I'll tell you that right now.
They're gone, right?
Yeah, I'm just waiting for it to quiet down.
Okay. Okay, cool.